a lot of work on your ooh,
There you
work on your end as
go.
well. So
Yeah, seriously. Well, welcome to you guys. Welcome both back to our I think now that it's recording, I feel like I have to be official. No, no. No, we'll just chit chat. But meeting two, February 23rd, 2023. Oh, that's a kind of an interesting I don't
23,
know.
23.
Yeah, 2 through 3, 2023. So um just want to quickly open it up. I think it'll be nice to kind of I do feel like the past month has been for me, it's felt kind of whirlwindy, like, or not like a whirlwind, as in like a lot of things have changed, but I just feel like time flew by so quickly. Um, but would be kind of nice to hear like updates on like any interesting films we watched outside of the spotlight film, any interesting developments in terms of life. I mean, I certainly have a few to share, so um, I randomized it. Kind of want to hear from maybe Jackson. What you've been up to.
Oh yeah, sure. So I graduated a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. You
Had my
graduated?
conference. Yeah, my program's done. So
What? Wait,
I
what?
have like an official graduation like in May, but I had my presentation conference for my thesis like uh
Oh,
first week of February.
wait,
yeah,
well, yeah, wait, I thought I was under the assumption that your graduation would happen like by like May or June, because I think that's typically.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh.
yeah. I think the official ceremony is then. They don't have one for like winter grad or anything.
Hmm. Mm.
But yeah, semester and a half or a year and a half. So I'm done now.
No.
Thesis is wrapped up. What a relief.
Yeah, yeah,
I've just
yeah.
been kind of doing this and that since then. Trying to get back into watching stuff a little
Right, right.
bit. Um, Stuff I've been watching outside of this. What else? What have I seen recently? I'm trying to go through as many Tony Scott movies as I can because I just think Tony Scott has such a ridiculously fun style. Um, from Top Gun, but also Deja Vu is one of the
Mhm.
greatest. Unstoppable is a great movie.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
saw The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 recently. It was very good.
I
John
remember
Travolta
that
is really
movie.
great in that.
Yeah.
Classic. What else did I see? I saw Master and Commander, the Russell Crowe boat, like
Oh,
British Navy movie.
oceans are battlefields.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Oceans are now battlefields. That was so sick. I actually love that. It's just like you're on the boat with all the boys the whole time and just like
Yeah.
um what else? I was on set a
Mm,
couple weeks ago for Columbia's MFA producer and her thesis film. I was
mm.
a COVID compliance officer, which meant that I was checking COVID tests and stuff. And then I was just like a production assistant on set. Um, that was really, really fun. I don't know. I can talk more about that if you guys like. And then I have another shoot that I'm going to be on set for this weekend that I got through that same producer. It'll be an
Do you,
NYU film.
do you when you are going on set, like does Columbia or like your program help you find these, or are you kind of finding them on your own in terms of
I've been finding them on my own. I think if you're an MFA, you work with a lot of your classmates and your cohorts to
that makes sense.
do a lot of stuff, but I don't have like a production oriented like cohort or anything. So
Right, right.
I met the producer of the Columbia producer that I worked for a couple weeks ago in
Uh-huh.
another class at Columbia, and we just became friends. And then
Mm,
I saw her like posting about raising funds for it and stuff like this, and I sent her like
mm.
$50 and was like, "Hey, good luck, and like would love to get involved if you need someone, whatever, whatever." Um, and she sent me my $50 back, and then is like, "All right, come do COVID compliance for us." I was like, "All right, word."
Yeah,
But it's great. I did that. I had to get certified for it, and now I'm certified for a year to do that. So I'm gonna try and do it on more sets, and some sets will even pay you for it. So it's been good. It's been
that's
really
cool.
like kind
Yeah,
of just open-ended, fun deal so far.
yeah. I think, for me, I mean, I'll talk about it in my update too, but like as I think about the potential of like my being in sort of that position if the program, if I do get accepted, like that idea of like finding gigs and networking, it's like exciting, but also feels so nebulous in my head that like
Hmm.
I don't know, like I have like mixture of like excitement, but also a lot of anxiety about that too. But
Oh
it's
yeah,
cool.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
impossible to know like what specifically will come across or what specifically will come your way and like when. So it's a lot of just taking things as they come and like
Yeah,
rolling with it.
for sure, for sure. Well, belated congrats on graduating. Like
Thank you.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I now think about the meta stability of images when I look at some like no,
Likewise.
I actually did think about it a lot. I mean, I was like, um, I think like I was watching like a random snippet of Ghost in the Shell like a few weeks ago, and then I kind of thought about like, yeah, like I guess I am sort of seeing like the totality of that image, even though it's like frontal facing kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I have a sense of its dimensionality. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think I like had the right words to describe that until
Mm-hmm.
I like, you shared your thesis. So
That's cool. I'm glad.
yeah.
I've been watching a lot of TV with my roommate, and some whenever there's like a 3D graphic or something, I'll be like, "Hey, look!
Yeah, that's my thesis right there.
Hey, look at
Yeah.
the metastable thing right there." Yeah.
Cool.
Um, oh, I did have one more thing. I don't know if you guys have been watching this Korean show, Physical 100.
Oh, I
What
know
100?
Physical 100.
It's called
Physical
Physical
100?
I
100.
know it. I haven't been watching it, but no, I know that shit.
It's so good. It's so sick. I'm actually obsessed. This is
Yeah.
not like filmy. This is more like, kind of, I mean, it's reality TV, like
Right,
competitive
right.
reality TV. But it's literally they get like the 100 fittest, strongest, like most jacked people in Korea
Yeah.
Mhm.
and have them compete in like non-fatal squid game essentially.
Yeah.
Um, with a little more like focus on certain kind of like physical abilities.
What
Mhm.
Uh,
what do you think is so I haven't really watched it, but like
mhm.
I hear that and then I kind of feel like this is a kind of show that I feel like I've maybe like it feels like it's a really like a tried and true concept or like tried and true like it feels like it's like a concept that has been tried before or like it almost
Yeah,
could feel a little like redundant, but like I'm
yeah.
curious like why it's working for this
It's,
particular.
I mean, yeah, the structure is super, super classic. I think it works really well because, for me, I think the structure of it, that you start with 100 people and then you work your way down from so many people down to one.
Uh,
Like Survivor will start you with like 20 maybe, right? Survivor starts
uh-huh.
with like 20, 25 people, but if you make it like this huge competition and like you introduce a lot of people right at the beginning, then it's almost like anime where like there are so many different characters and everyone has their own kind of abilities and stories and like kind of
Uh-huh.
personality and like will come out and everyone wants to win and has their
Mhm.
different kind of way of winning. I think part of it as well is the like Korean culture within it, the competitive within the competition makes it much more enjoyable and almost kind of like wholesome or endearing versus like
Mm.
if I think if they made the same show in the States with American athletes and stuff, it would be extremely trashy and toxic. I think everyone would like just be like really rude and like I'm gonna fuck you up. Like but
Mm.
everyone's like bowing and is so respectful and has so much respect for like other athletes, like people who are
Mm.
Olympians, who are like famous or whatever. And I think just the vibe of it, the games that they've designed and the whole aesthetic of it is really nice. They have like that same disembodied voice doing the announcing as opposed to a
Uh,
host, so it does feel kind of Squid Gamey. I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. Cool. And I definitely have heard of it. Maybe I'll have to watch a few episodes.
Check the first episode out. First episode is really fire. They just introduce everyone and they play one game, and the first game is like
Yeah.
super good.
Nice. All right, Younggon, any updates, any films you watched or anything interesting? Would love to like hear.
Uh, I mean, the semester started for me, so that's sort of the main thing. Just back in the grind of teaching.
Okay. What are you
But
teaching this semester?
it's the same old Russian 101.
Uh, okay.
Yeah, and yeah,
It'll be
but that
it's so crazy to just picture you teaching a class. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I totally can picture it, but like, I just sort of know you from Amherst.
I mean it's like a pretty small class.
Mhm.
Last year was like 3 people. This is like 5, so it's not too
Mhm.
much of a transition or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it's been pretty fun. Yeah. In terms of films, I mean, you already kind of talked about meta stability. I was actually going to bring this up in relation to this particular film, but I saw the final Evangelion movie, which came out
Oh,
like 2 years ago, and
yeah.
that baby uses like a lot of like 3D imagery mingled with 2D imagery,
Mm,
and a lot of that movie's thematics is about overcoming the cycle of
mm,
its own sort of creation of Evangelion, overcoming it as a creator, overcoming it as or sort of in an amor fati way, kind of like coming to love the cycle in and of
right.
itself. And there was a lot of room to think about what the metastable image does for that particular film, you know.
Mm,
So yeah, it was a new horizon that kind of opened up. Other than that, I saw like a Looney Tunes
mm.
retrospective in Brattle just like a
There's a
day ago.
Looney Tunes retrospective.
Yeah, it's like a bug. They call it the Bugs Bunny Film Festival.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they just play like 10 Looney Tunes shorts
That is
in the
crazy.
theater with
Uh-huh.
the way it's supposed to be seen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool.
it is. So I saw
Uh,
like I had like front row seats, so I saw like 10 of them straight. I'm probably gonna go again because they're gonna play 10 new ones like tomorrow.
mm, mm,
Um, yeah, only about 80 minutes. Yeah, this is and it was a like like these shorts look so good, dude. Like in a way that like kids love these films. There were a lot of kids in my showing too. But
yeah.
like when you look at them with like fresh eyes and like you compare with all the animation you've seen until this point,
Hmm.
it's nuts. Like the way it times itself with the music, it the way the facial expressions are so detailed,
Yeah.
just wonderfully made. Yeah, it was a real inspiring experience.
Yeah. 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 That's cool. Yeah, I feel like we have a tendency to sort of uh kind of trivialize cartoons that we grew up with, but we kind of, I don't know, I feel like we forget that these are also like they hold their own ground too.
Yeah,
Um, what's Bugs Funny Film Festival? All right. Well, as for me, the big thing was the invitation for interview for the dual degree program at NYU, which I think it really was a product. I feel like I genuinely don't think it would have been possible if I didn't get help from you guys on it. Like it it was, I don't know, it did feel like a team effort, right? Like Young Guang, you helped me with the film concept. Jackson, you gave me like really good feedback on the script that I wrote. Um, and I think like even in my interview, like the MFA, so I had my MFA interview on Friday and I had the MBA interview yesterday. So I'm like done with it now. But the MFA people um like told me that like uh they saw like a storyteller in me that like I don't know. I thought it was really this nice compliment to hear from
We
them.
love to hear that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
amazing.
I thought it was
That's
kind of
huge.
yeah. And then one of the panelists, he was like a faculty member, but was trained as a photographer. And then it was the first. So for my portfolio, I submitted 10 film photos I took over the past like 5 years of my life that I just thought would be worthy. And then it was the first time where like somebody gave me feedback on like a visual asset that I've uh, amassed over time, and
yeah,
kind of felt surreal that like it was an artist evaluating me as an artist.
mm,
And I
mm,
thought that was such a new possibility of exploring like my identity because I don't think I've ever really like saw myself as an artist. So yeah,
That's so sick.
I got weirdly emotional when he was talking to me about like what he thought of my photos. He was like, yeah,
Wow.
because he was like, yeah, like I sense a kind of like a subdued loneliness in your photos.
Mm,
It's like something like it seems like there's very like Edward Hopper aesthetic, right? Um, and I like when I was living in Chicago, I would actually go to the art institute a lot just to look at Hopper paintings, and it struck a chord for sure. So um, I think they're gonna let me know in terms of decision by end of March. So got some time to kill. But yeah, I feel like just a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Think I left it all out there. So we'll see what
You're gonna
happens.
kill it, man. I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
excited.
It's just yeah. And then I'm like I don't want to like jump the gun too much, but in the case where I do get accepted, then it's like the other battle is to like now like pretty much like talk to my parents about it because I don't think they know that I applied to this program. Like like I think they know that I applied to like MBA programs, but like this MFA thing is gonna like throw like it's gonna kind of throw them into like a little curveball. So I'm also thinking about how I would reach this topic with them. But I feel like committed. So um that's the one thing. I watched a lot of good Asian cinema this
Mm-hmm.
past oh, one other thing. The MBA interviewer actually asked me like what's a film that you recently watched that like really stuck with you? And for some reason, like the first film that came to mind was A Moment of Innocence. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think that was a really good film to choose. Yeah.
It was a great choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
very
yeah,
classy, very,
Yeah,
yeah.
very, yeah,
yeah,
thoughtful.
yeah.
Very learned.
And then I mean I don't want to like typecast this interviewer, but I like LinkedIn stalked her and she went to Brown. I was like, oh, this is such a Brown.
Uh,
It's a very Brown-esque film. She was an English major at Brown. I was like, again, I think
oh
I
yeah, this
spoke
is
to the
funny. Yeah.
yeah, I spoke to the right person.
That's
um,
awesome.
but and then yeah, I watched two movies that I actually really liked outside of the Spotlight films. One was called it's called Farewell My Concubine. Have you guys heard of it?
Hmm.
I haven't seen it
Like
though.
it was so
It's
good. It was
Pyongyang, right? In
Pyong
Korean.
Beauty.
Yeah.
I think it like has everything that I also like in a film, like unrequited feelings, the
Hmm.
blurred lines between like stage and reality, and
Hmm.
how that man. It's a romance film, but it's also like a movie kind of
Hmm.
put together.
Mm.
So that was really wonderful. And then I watched another movie called it's on Netflix called Dear X. I don't know if you guys heard of it. This movie
Uh,
actually
Dear
actually
X.
Dear X. This movie was, I think, probably one of the more well-written films I've seen. Like,
Mm,
and for me, like it's the first movie in a while where I actually started crying.
mm,
And
wow.
if I cry in a movie, it's like automatic 5 stars. Doesn't matter how short.
hmm.
Automatic five
True.
I
stars.
Me
respect
too.
that,
Yeah,
bro. I respect that.
True.
yeah,
If it
yeah.
reaches you in a point, right?
Yeah, it's like doesn't matter like the technicality or like whatever. It like if it breaks through that emotional barrier and hits me, like then I surrender
Yeah.
to it. And
Yeah.
this film did that, so I thought it was worth noting. But yeah, so I would say those two films, the NYU. I told this to Jackson, but I'm visiting New York in a few weeks. I'm still figuring out plans, so if I can, I think it'll be nice to maybe
Yeah, for sure.
use
Keep me in
that
the
some.
loop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, and I'm also trying to like potentially arrange a visit to NYU. So
Nice.
I
Hmm.
booked my trip to New York without knowing that this NYU thing was gonna happen. So it's also like pretty timely that I'm going there. So,
Nice.
Hmm.
Cool.
oh yeah, let me just write down my little NYU progress. Farewell, my concubine. And anyway, that's cool. Um, well, do you want to switch over to talking about Spotlight films?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, first film, Raging Bull, uh, by De Niro. I yeah, just I'll just kick it off. I thought it was a freaking phenomenal film. I didn't like it was like I knew it was a Scorsese film,
Hmm.
but it also didn't feel like a Scorsese film, you know? Like
Mm.
there were some nuances about the film that um I felt was a lot more tender and a lot more like
Yeah.
it just felt a little bit more elegant than some of his more rough films that I
Mhm.
feel like I'm more used to.
Mhm.
So I'll just kick it off
Hmm.
there and want to hear like what other people have thought.
I mean, I'll go right off of that. I like totally agree. I went into this fully expecting like a Mean Streets, Goodfellas, Taxi
Hmm.
Driver, disgruntled male tale of a guy with lots and lots and lots of issues who
Right.
like, kind of can't have a peaceful, decent moment. Is just like always like losing his shit and just getting chaotic shit. And there's an element of that, of course. This
Right.
is like very much in that canon of Scorsese male tales, but
The
you're
male
right.
tails,
It's
yeah.
yeah, but the intimacy, right? And the like kind of the how quiet and gentle it is at times, right? And even like, um, and how closely they contrast it against like you'll be in at home with Jake with his wife and they're like resolving their thing after having a huge explosive fight and they're like quiet and he's just hugging and he's apologizing and whispering and then there's this hard cut to like being in the ring and the audience is
Mhm.
jeering and the bells are
Hmm.
going and it's back into this like surge but it makes the quiet parts feel all the more like emphatic like you just feel like oh my god I don't even want to breathe in these moments
Yeah.
of silence because I don't want to punctuate them.
Right.
I think that for me is also like I guess testament to Thelma Schoonmaker,
Hmm.
who is Scorsese's like recurrent collaborator as an editor.
Uh,
Her cut here, and like I've always known that she's like very talented and has like done a lot of great editing for Scorsese, but this is where this was the movie that really like put her talents on display for me because she really
Hmm.
does bring you a like so seamlessly through so much time
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
and right like over such a long period and then also just kind of between these moments like cut to cut and transition to transition that are so striking and the contrast she uses is so striking and the contrast in sound and the sound bridges she uses are so striking so I love this. I thought it was a really sick movie.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that really resonates with like how editing is really a way. I mean, it's like I read this book by Tarkovsky called Sculpting in Time, and I think that left such an
Mm-hmm.
impression on me where like editing it like well just film in general is an act of sculpting time and then making some sort of final product or a statue out of time that is coherent
Yes.
and is expansive at the same time.
Hmm.
And yeah, this is taking you from I think like the 40s all the way to like 70s. It was like a long time span. It like makes sense when it does it. And a
Hmm.
part of it, I think is definitely the director's vision as well as the actor. Like De Niro gains
Of course,
like
Hmm.
60 pounds to
I
kind of
didn't recognize him at the beginning when he's old Jake and he's got all the
Yeah.
prosthetic bruises on and shit. I didn't
yeah,
realize that was him. And then we come
yeah,
back to him at the end, and of course it looks like him because you watched him get fucked up to that point. But I was like, what?
yeah. Seriously. Like I think they play a part, but I like at the end of the day, it's like yeah, the editor, I feel like they play such a
Mm.
huge role in bringing all that together to like do the final touch of like making time, making the passage of time not awkward or
Hmm.
seamless, right? Yeah. What about you,
Yeah.
Youngwang?
Oh, I mean, I echo a lot of the praise you guys have heaped on the film. I think this is Thelma's most shining moment, like Jackson said. I think this might be De Niro's most shining moment in his career. I think.
There's a very
Um,
strong case for that. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so like my take on this film is that I think a lot of I think most Scorsese films have like this underlying theme, well, not even underlying, very overt theme about temptation and penance,
Yeah, yeah.
where the temptation is so seductive, it is so it sometimes it's complex, like Taxi Driver. What is the temptation in Taxi Driver? It's not just like overcoming self-loathing, but overcompensating to the point where you become this almost like mythic urban hero that
Mm,
cleans up the waste, that sort of purifies the what he considers sexual pathologies of the city, which is really his own sexual pathologies, sort
mm,
of projected onto the city. And
Mm.
Goodfellas, Casino, um, Wolf of Wall Street, where the whole movie is almost like in a reality bubble of temptation. There's no world external to the temptation. It's all
Mm.
about sort of the decadent sort of indulgence in the temptation. where even imagine a life outside of it, like the ending of Goodfellas, where he keeps wanting to go back after all that, life led without reflection. I think Raging Bull is very special in the sense that you can't quite understand what the temptation is. You just see like 2 hours of ruthless panic. He's like trying to redeem himself from something, but what is like what's sweet about it?
Mm.
What's the sweet sort of taste of sin that led him to this? You like it's almost like the exact opposite of Goodfellas, where there really is no world outside the almost religious misery that
Mhm.
De Niro's character.
Mm.
It's
Do you have a
I'm
theory into that? Sorry, have you finished what you're saying?
uh I'm not sure if there is like I think it might be consciously sort of sculpted in that way, almost as a counterpoint, almost as a low point, just emotionally in his
Mm.
entire filmography, where there really is no sort of way out, even in the sort of like the unconscious Catholic sense that I think Scorsese brings to all of his
Mm.
movies. He like this genuinely feels like a godless world, and like the ending where he just looks in the mirror and he's all alone to himself. For me, the best scene in the film is himself in the dark, just like punching the wall at like screaming why,
In
Right? Yeah, yeah,
solitary.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Holy
yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
He went crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But what is the question he's really asking? Why what?
Yeah.
Why is he like this? Why did he get to this point? You don't like that's not so much as relevant as sort of like the emotional
Mm.
world
Mhm.
that you're
Hmm.
enveloped in permanently. And then at the end when he's still alone, it's almost like the same scene sort of played for sort of tragic laughs where he's just looking, you know,
Mhm.
sort of answering his own question of why as to like where he's just parodying another film, and saying you're gonna be somebody. And I just realized Boogie that
I was
this is
gonna
Boogie
say, is
Nights
that the
ending as
ending of
well. But
Boogie
yeah,
Nights too, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Eh,
Except without the schlong in the mirror.
yeah, without the song in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like, although you could say that's just like the sort of the subtext just becoming text
Hmm.
in that particular film. In his own way, De Niro's character is sort of swinging his
Bearing
schlong
it.
in the mirror as well, but like
Mhm.
it's a different kind of nakedness, I suppose. But it's like,
Hmm.
I think it's very one could sort of maybe I could like envision like an imaginary critic criticizing that because but at the same time, when a movie makes you feel this way, it might not make you cry, but like, when a movie pierces that emotional barrier, like Andrew said, I think you just kind of have to like submit to it. I think this is his best film. I think this is also Scorsese's greatest moment as a
Yeah.
filmmaker.
I think
I'm inclined to agree, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I actually haven't watched too many Scorsese films. I've watched three that I can like that are Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Wolf of Wall Street. Um, I guess I watched Hugo, but that's a very like I don't know. Yeah.
The divergence,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit of a
yeah,
divergence.
yeah.
But I think few things that I want to maybe just call out that I am thinking of. I think Scorsese is a master of like creating very like monologues that really do last beyond the film's like expiration date. Like Taxi
Mhm,
Driver, I think the you talking to me monologue, it's literally it's like a sound bite. I think it's an immortal sound bite.
mhm.
Even with Raging Bull, I think what I took away is like the last scene where he's like shadow boxing. He's like, I'm the boss, I'm the boss, I'm the boss.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think those are like some like really just great writing in my opinion that makes
Mhm,
sense in those situations. Um, I think another thing I did feel like the reason why I think like I'm comparing this a lot to Taxi Driver and Raging Bull because it came out around the same like period, like 70s and 80s. They both had dreamy qualities, like
mhm,
like qualities, like ethereal qualities in the film's atmosphere, but in different ways. And I thought that was also really interesting, like how Taxi Driver, the dreamlike
mhm.
quality is coming from it's like coming from the character's like psychological like just deprivation or psychological descent. Whereas I think Raging Bull's dreamlike quality, it comes more from a dissent that's more domestic, right? That's more
Hmm.
dissent that's a little bit more external in a sense. Um,
Mm,
external in terms of like the interrelationship between families and with each other. Because with Taxi Driver, it's very psychological dissent that's uh,
hmm.
produced from the self, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought
Versus the partner and the brother
exactly,
becomes a very like a very major consideration in this movie. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and yeah, I think Scorsese's like male tale, at least from what I watched, I think he likes to work with characters that are more sort of like the flaneurs, like the Santeurs of the city, the ones who sort of I think it's this I think he likes capturing a lot about like this male like urban
Hmm.
like what it's like to be like a male figure in like an urban
Hmm.
setting. But I
Hmm.
think with this film, it's a little bit more like that aspect. I feel like is kind of de-emphasized. Like you don't really see the
Hmm.
relationship with the city and the character as much as like the character in a domestic setting more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
So
interesting actually. You just reminded me of it was like a Lincoln Center talk, I think. Yeah, it was the Lincoln Center talk. Lincoln Center, this is great actually if you want to look this up. Lincoln Center uploads all their like festival Q&As and whatever to the
yeah, yeah,
podcast on Spotify. So they always have all
Mhm.
these talks online you can listen to.
I missed
But
this
I
one.
was listening to the Paul Schrader talk a little while back for
Oh,
Master Gardener. And,
Mhm.
he's like a recurring writer for Scorsese. He wrote this, he wrote
right.
Taxi Driver, he wrote a couple others. He's worked with
He directed First Reformed, right? With
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So First Reform, Card Counter, and Master Gardener are kind of part of the is kind of this like modern Schrader Renaissance,
Mhm.
supposedly. But he had this
Mhm.
really, really interesting piece in that talk when he was talking about this, where his writing process begins with not with an idea or with a character or with a premise, but with an occupational metaphor, is what he called it. And so it's always the
Mhm.
card counter. What does the card counter do? What does it say about someone to be a card counter? Or does that person
Oh,
become one
interesting.
in reply? Same thing about the gardener. What does it symbolize? What kind of person becomes a gardener? And then what kind of story emerges from that? Or what's like. And so I think, yeah, this is like the boxer kind of
Right.
occupational metaphor of boxing for Schrader in
Mhm.
some ways. And boxing as like this kind of weirdly like obviously oppositional, obviously contentious, obviously violent, obviously like individualistic, but
Mhm.
also like very deeply intimate. Like boxing
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
an experience between two fighters is a very intimate thing. You're like breaking past these kind of invisible boundaries of normal sociality, right? And it's like
Mhm.
Sugar Ray, who he fights like constantly throughout this movie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They develop a kind of like specific intimacy with each other just through their fists, and just
Yeah.
through hitting each other to the point where at the end he's like, "You never knocked me down. You never knocked me down, Ray." Like,
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and they have that like together, and there's this kind of like, I mean, it's a point of pride. Actually, Young I can definitely appreciate your idea that there's nothing like specific there. There's no specific sin or this kind of thing. But you were talking about that, the one thing I thought of was um, the scene where Jake is talking to Joey. Joey's is Joe Pesci's character, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Jake's talking to Joey about wanting to box the heavyweight champion and how he's a middleweight, and Joey's like, "Well, that's never gonna happen. So like, get over it. Like that's just not even
Mhm.
a thing that like could even happen." But it's like what Jake LaMotta like wants or what he thinks he needs to like self actualize or to be
Yeah.
the greatest, is to be able to beat anybody. But there's like a fixed ceiling on what he can achieve with that, because of weight
Mhm.
class, just simply. Um, that was the thing that I've kind of thought of is like that the impossibility of achieving beyond of reaching where he would want to be is kind of
Mhm.
the great torture that I see or that I think of. Even just hearing you talk about it that way, Youngblood.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's it. No, that might be it, honestly. And just to like build off on what you were saying, uh, this might be like the most reflective film about like that Schrader approach in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
this film might be about the sort of ultimate futility of that occupational metaphor because he is so fixated on like beating people down in the ring, overcoming his challenges in the ring, and when times are bad, when his domestic life is bad, and he wants to find penance in the ring. He wants to be beaten down by other people. He wants to be punished by other people. But nothing materially in his real life changes. He's so caught up in in his own sort of metaphor of the ring,
Mm,
how he can overcome his
Right.
challenges, how he can
Like
be
that's his
vulnerable to
real
other people.
world, right?
Yeah, but he never truly overcomes any challenge and never can truly be vulnerable to people in real life, you know.
right.
So he projects all this psychic energy in the ring. All he only lives in the ring, and he's really no one, outside of the ring. He's not even really like a fully developed personality, and that might be
Mhm.
the sort of like that might be the real sort of sin, I suppose, in the sense that he has sort of abandoned his sort of prerogative for life. You know,
Yeah. Mm.
he's not living life as life.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
almost as if this occupational metaphor is in itself almost an anti-metaphor by kind
Mhm.
of declaring that this really shouldn't be a metaphor in some
Yeah.
sense. And I think as I was thinking about kind of the film techniques too, the I don't recall because I think what Jackson said about the intimacy of boxing and
Mhm.
how I don't know, there's also this sort of like sexuality to
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're boxing and sort of just how close up the camera is. I think the camera, it's so intently immersed in this act of boxing
Mhm.
that almost makes this seem more like a real life, like a more prominent reality
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
Lamada. But I I think a lot of the times when the film is shooting his life in the outside the boxing ring, it's a lot more subdued. It's a lot more from kind of like a from a wider shot. There's
Mhm.
less moving camera work. So I feel like even in just the form of cinematography in like the way the camera is being treated in these situations, like I think it's acknowledging the intimacy of boxing and the detachment of Lamada from sort of everything outside of it. Right?
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. It's like fundamentally a different world between the boxing ring and the outside world, like how it looks, how it feels, how it
Yeah.
moves, right? Like down to the
Yeah,
very fundamental, like tangible elements of it.
for sure,
It's
for sure.
really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I
oh, I
thought
had one more. That's something I forgot.
mhm. I heard that this movie, like Scorsese actually didn't want to do it. I think
Mm.
he like
Mhm.
De Niro had to convince him to do it because I think Scorsese was like addicted to cocaine around this time. Like he was like
Shouldn't
on
laugh.
some like crack cocaine addiction, and I think his like career was about to take a nosedive. And De Niro was like, I think you got to shoot this film, and then that actually helped turn his career around apparently.
Hmm.
Yeah,
The
so
70s caught up to him.
yeah,
Yeah, no, literally, right?
yeah.
And then he
It's
hangs
very
out in like limbo for the 80s, right? He does all these kind of weird, right? He does like King of Comedy and After Hours and then all these like
Mhm.
offbeat kind
right.
of different kind of things. But this is like the kind of like send off of that 70s Scorsese, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the
True,
kind of
true.
ultimate tragic kind of resolution of that, at least until, he comes back with Goodfellas and this kind of thing later
Right,
on.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
great.
This really is like the send off for that particular phase of
Yeah.
Nail Tales,
Yeah.
and he does transform into something. I think Scorsese has a much lighter touch with his films after this
Yeah,
one.
This
Like,
one, yeah.
yeah.
All
I think
right.
that's right. Actually, I really want to watch King of Comedy next. I only want to see that like next week or so. I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next spotlight film, which I feel like I think there's a lot that we could
Oh
discuss.
yeah, we could be here forever.
Yeah,
This meeting could have been 2 hours.
but all right, Persona. Pretty sure I think it was in the 66, but I think I read a film critic who wrote that this film is like the Mount Everest of film analysis.
Mhm.
And I have to agree. I have to agree. And I'm honestly floored by the fact that this film came out in the 60s.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
so incredibly experimental, so incredibly just almost like psychotherapeutic in the way it approaches some of the content.
Yeah.
I'll be lying if I said like I understood everything either. I think there was a lot of
Uh,
just like I don't know if it was like deliberate ambiguity or just my like well like I don't yeah, but like there definitely was um yeah a lot to unpack, but I want to hear some of you guys' thoughts.
Gosh, where to start?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about big dicks on screen, am I right? That opening. You guys watch it on HBO Max where they had the penis in it? Oh my
Oh
God,
no,
that's
no, no! I didn't
insane.
see it
No,
on HBO
I
Max.
think I
No.
watched it on Criterion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, oh my gosh. I mean, for one thing, just any of these moments, either at the very beginning or right in the middle or kind of at the end when they break from this kind of immediate reality of the two of them in the home or in the hospital or this kind
Mm,
of thing, just is there's probably like 60 seconds of all of that like scratch film animation kind of other
Mhm,
footage whatever all kind of total in the movie, but I think you could spend like 100 pages just breaking down the elements of that.
right.
mhm,
I think it I mean gosh, everything I have a theory for the basis is in like a 2 second moment that like made me think something like when the camera, like there's that moment towards the end, there's like that flash of the camera rig that's like actually like comes down and like is
Y-
filming us.
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
or there's like the little animated man at the beginning. I was totally like my animation theory brain was going off and then
Yeah.
yeah,
coming back
yeah.
to like if this is a whole like film moving image as construction of a subject, construction of a world that isn't actually real, which is instead, this facade, a persona perhaps that we fill with ourselves or we fill as we are, and that like is kind of as much a vessel for whatever is in the content of the film as it is like an entry point for the viewer into that
Mhm.
subject, or we kind of take them as we are the way I forget
Mhm.
the women's names in this
Yeah,
movie, the way the nurse does, kind of falls into being this actress.
yeah. I
But
think
again,
for
yeah, I had no idea. I would like not defend or like
yeah.
any of these theories if anyone challenged me.
No, I mean I don't think I like formed any like theories, but I think I feel like I was definitely watching this more from like a genealogical perspective of like
Mhm.
I mean I think Persona had to have been one of the first films to really influence like the up and coming filmmakers, right? Like I saw I saw David Lynch in a lot of
Oh
the
yeah.
sensibilities.
Yeah.
Oh my
I saw
gosh.
Irma Vep here. Um,
Mm.
I saw like Mulholland Drive is David Lynch, but like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I think there was like a little bit. I mean, like the setup is similar. Um, I watched this film called Image Book, which is by Godard. I think it was his latest
Mhm.
film before he passed away, and it's just
Yeah.
a series of images that are unrelated that are just placed for 2 hours. And I think what Bergman does in the beginning, as he like has juxtapositions of seemingly unrelated images that to shoot off the start off the film. Yeah, I think it's kind of I feel like I was one. I think this film for me was like definitely was kind of like a tracing back of a lot of the films that we watch now and seeing like maybe a lot of them do have roots at least in the sensibilities of like this film. And I can see that it have influenced a lot of like future filmmakers.
Mhm. Yeah. Like Mulholland Drive. This. I mean, there's so. I think Freaky Friday, Three Women,
Mm,
uh, Daisies, Celine and Julie Go Boating. Like single white female, like
Whoa.
single white female. There's an actual uncanny amount of films where women swap identities, women just change
Mm.
places, change bodies,
Right,
change
right.
sort of yeah, and but before that, I mean, and so like I think the genealogical, and if you go into like the idea of like the love triangle,
Mm.
where there are two women are vying for the same position of like of being loved or being, you know, of the lover of the film, you can make the sort of argument that you know, if sort of the presumed viewer of the movie is male, like this film is sort of unpacking the sort of the psychic burden, the psychosis of like of one of there only being one place for multiple, you know, of
Mm.
sort of being in this sort of field of field of perception, how they're being perceived, and how sort of replaceable, how interchangeable they become. But before that, I think it's so funny that Ingmar Bergman made this movie. Like he gets so much flack, especially nowadays, I think, for being this stagey sort of lecturer, sort of preacher type
Mm.
of like a classical art house filmmaker, where sort of where the thing is in the words, the thing is, I mean, he always has composition, but like he's you know, he never had like the highest sort of esteem for like cinema as like an independent art form. And, you know, he was one of the
Mm.
last sort of filmmakers to view it as like an offshoot of theater, sometimes even a lesser
Mm.
version of theater.
Yeah, no, he has such like Brechtian vibes in this movie, right?
Yeah.
Like kind
So
of
this
the direct address and like the being aware of the whole kind of construction of it in some way.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it feels like sort of the breakdown of that in this film, almost like he's sort of accepting his like the film director's more accepting of his role as film director, more so
Mm.
than like a diminished recorded play, you know, playwright. And I bring up all these to say I think you know, there's so many angles to go at it, especially years from now when this film sort of stands not at like the vanguard of things, but like, you know, in the past. I mean, it's the vanguard of still so many things, but like where so many things have drawn upon this film, so many things have sort of taken this approach of, you know, we can sort of unpack the unconscious of sort of you know of just the idea of the of the human being, idea of a woman being perceived, the idea of a film itself, you know, and all three of these things is sort of put it into this melange of like this stream of images, and we can sort of put this out and we can call this art. And I think that sort of self-understanding of film, I think more than anything, I think one can point to this film and say, yeah, like this film really enhanced our sort of almost like just the confidence of a medium, you
Mm.
know, and um yeah.
I had a I had a quick question actually on this. Because when I look at the genre of this film, it's I mean, I don't know how useful genre categorization can be in a film like this, but it is like put under psychological horror, right? Like a horror film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, like for you guys, what what is horrifying about this film? Like where does that nexus or kind of the epicenter of like where does that energy of horror emanate
Mm,
from in this film? Because I guess that was a question that I was asking. Like, I feel unsettled. I feel like my mind is being kind of like mind fucked in a way, but like
Hmm.
I couldn't quite find the language to really like figure out like what is horrifying here, you know?
mm,
Aside from the goat being bled,
That is
because that's just like straight
yeah,
up kind of horrific.
yeah, that's
Um,
true.
I mean, for me, it's the kid. It's the kid in bed,
yeah,
like looking
yeah.
out at the window, and like with like totally kind of no explanation or nothing, but it's just so like you don't know what's going on, nothing's happening. He's just like he reads a little bit and then he reaches out, but it's so eerie, isn't it? It's
That's true. That's
so
true.
like
Yeah.
just I don't even know where I am. I don't know what this is. I don't know
Mhm,
like and so it and the not knowing like leaves the mind space to like wander almost or to imagine like the kind of, I don't know, it feels entrapped in a certain way. Actually, this is
Yeah.
something I noticed in the there's that shot of she comes into her hospital room and the bed is there, right? And like the room is framed in this kind of almost very neat Wes Anderson kind of way where you see the whole
Mhm.
bed frame and she's there and the
And the
door is there and the
yeah.
top of the door is there and it's all contained in this frame. And then outside of like on kind of edges of the frame, it's just like blank floor, blank wall, and it kind of like exists in like this kind of hyperbolic bubble almost with how it's been contained. Like there's nothing like there are no objects like this lamp here drifting off screen. You like understand that like this it has like a stand off screen that you can't see, right? Like if it
Mhm.
was just contained, there's no basis with which to think that there's anything else there
Yeah, yeah,
beyond the frame, right? Like it could just be whiteness, like just total like abstract emptiness.
yeah. Uh, I, yeah, just building off on that, like this film does not let you have a footing, just narratively, thematically, just even imagistically, for a very long time. And I think
Mhm.
the kid's sort of presence destabilizes that, where it's, after all this identity shifting, after all this like destructive editing that the
Yeah.
film sort of inflicts upon itself, like there is like a final through line of guilt about how like the maybe that Elizabeth, the actress,
Mm-hmm.
in a weird temporal loop, again at this point, sort of the temporal loop, might as well go with it, because like maybe she struck herself mute because like she didn't want to have the son, and
Mhm.
the very first image of the first like true like lasting image of the film is like the son sort of touching the big screen of the woman's
Mm-hmm.
face, and maybe
Yeah.
and she and she's been sort of identity jumping into Alma, or Alma's been sort of taking in Elizabeth's guilt. So like the only clarity this film offers is guilt. And like, are you willing to take that clarity after, or are you willing to actually go back into the sort of disturbing flux of it all? And this is like almost directly in like a parallel into Mulholland Drive, because that film is also about the clear guilt, the sense of guilt, and the sense of like loneliness that arrives at the end of the confusion, and it's almost asking the viewer and the character like, would you rather not be forever confused than to have to live with this? um
Mm-hmm.
and and in the end, like Alma and Elizabeth, those are the names, right? Alma and Elizabeth,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's what
right?
it is.
Yeah, Alma and Elizabeth, they part ways, so to speak. The Alma like sort of asserts her identity, and then you see the crew filming it all, and it's like they're in a I think there is a sense that in a way a demon has been exorcised. It's like it's been sort of you're sort of moving away from the film set, you are moving beyond the production.
Mhm.
um but before, like everything before that, like I think, yeah, and not to mention that, do you guys remember the photograph of the kid in when the Polish Jews were being rounded up in
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Warsaw?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
so it's either personal guilt or world historical sort of wrongdoing
Mm.
and guilt. That's the only sort of interpretive modes out that the film offers. And I think a lot of the horror, a lot of the sort of pit in your stomach feeling this film induces, at least for me, is related to that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think there was one scene from the film actually that like actually terrified the fuck out of me. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember, I think so the nurse is Alma and the patient is Elizabeth, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
there's a scene where like Elizabeth is like on her like hospital bed
Hmm.
and then the room is dark, right? And it's just like the camera on Elizabeth's face for like a good minute.
Hmm.
Um, and like her face just has like a shadow over her, and you just like um and you just it's kind of like like a chiaroscuro of like her face with the camera just on her face the whole time, and then
Yeah,
she seems like she's like not moving, but you start imagining that like she's like like I don't know if you remember that scene, but that
I
scene
think I do.
mhm,
There's like the light changes over time, right?
yeah,
It like
the
yeah,
light
darkens
changes
or
over time.
something. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, that was crazy.
That scene was fucking scary, and it kind of reminded
yeah.
me of Days when we watched that. And then I think
Mm.
there's a scene like right after like Lee Kang-sheng like has sex with the massage parlor person. I think the
Yeah.
camera also just like is on his face while he's like lying down to the side of the bed for like, and it's just an up close capture of his face for like 2 minutes. And
Hmm.
there is something that's so transfixing about a motionless face in front of a camera that
Hmm.
which like depending on the way it's contextualized from Days, it just felt so tender and sad, whereas
Hmm.
from Persona like it was honestly like just terrifying, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess like that particular scene just jumped to my mind as we were thinking about kind of the nature of horror in the film.
Hmm.
Actually, you know what? When you mentioned that, the scene that was really unsettling to me is that indictment that Alma does of Elizabeth and her son and August King, and then it goes twice,
Yeah,
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 right?
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
run the
And then,
same length twice from a different angle. We watch her say it after we watched
yeah,
Elizabeth hear it, and
yeah,
I've never seen that before. I've never seen anything like I've never seen something like so immediately too. Like, oh my god! But it was so strange. I was like, what's going on here? Like, what is the and it's just to like fall into these characters or like to I don't know. I thought that was so unsettling though because it's like this break from chronology. It's like this break from whatever kind of a reality they've established or
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
weird reality.
mhm.
I don't know. It's
yeah.
very strange. Yeah, it's very unsettling.
Yeah, I think I remember like reading in a film book about how like the transition from one shot or like one shot to the next shot, there has to be sort of like a psychological transfer that's kind of done implicitly, where like our brain generally needs to um implicitly like make sense of
Yeah,
the the causality between the first scene and the subsequent scene.
yeah.
But
Mm.
I think with that scene, that just thrown out the window. Like I genuinely don't think there was like a psychological transition that happens, which yeah, like definitely kind of creates that feeling of like unease and um kind of like yeah, I think like Jackson's word of eeriness is so apt in describing that. Um,
Yeah. That's the scene where, like, right after that scene, the split face thing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
jumped a little when that thing happened. Because
Yeah.
you can't immediately tell the face is split. Because, like,
uh-huh.
I don't know how they did it, but, like there is no
It's so
crease.
clean. Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
so clean.
destructive
Uh,
editing.
Yeah.
All
uh,
right.
what a
Yeah.
weird movie.
Let's I think that was good discussion. I think yeah, this is making me think about this film more. I like because I watched it a few like about a week ago and like life ran its course, so I haven't really thought about Persona. But as we are discussing it, I'm like, wow, like yeah, that was a pretty fucking scary movie. um, let's
Uh,
yeah.
we might have to put it down another month, a couple months from now, and
Yeah,
rewatch it
yeah.
and like revisit.
Revisit it. All right. We're almost,
Pick some
well, I
films.
guess we're up on time. Let's talk about spotlight films before we jump.
Mhm.
I think Jackson, you mentioned King of Comedy.
Oh yeah, do you guys want to watch that?
Yeah.
I have not watched it, so I'm down to
Have
watch
you
it.
seen that, Young One?
Yep. It's I don't know. I don't know. It's Taxi Driver keeps getting like the iconic Scorsese film treatment. I think Raging Bull and this are just better films. Like
I've heard,
point
yeah.
blank. Yeah, yeah.
There's a big like cult contingent of like King of Comedy fans on like film Twitter and stuff. So
Mm.
I'm
Oh,
very
really?
curious. Yeah.
All right, so let's do the King of Comedy,
All right.
Scorsese. Um, I any other thoughts? I was
Something Young Guang hasn't seen, maybe?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you have anything?
Uh, so I have Brattle is showing next month, at least for me. Ho Xiaoshen's Flowers of Shanghai.
Okay.
Ooh.
I have I mean I love some good Ho Xiaoshen. Um
uh,
I've
but
not
I yeah. Oh, go on, please.
Oh no, go on, go on. Like, what
I mean,
have you? Sorry.
no, it's just been a very long time, but we could do something else. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, which yeah, I mean,
What is it? Flowers of
hmm,
Shanghai?
yeah, they're
There
doing
was
like a three film sort of thing: Flowers of Shanghai, The Assassin, and Millennium Mambo,
uh
and Brad.
oh
Yeah, I think they were doing something like that at Metrograph recently
Oh
too.
yeah.
I watched
Yeah, I
I
had a
watched
couple.
well, first of all, Metrograph is a fucking amazing.
Amazing.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember I watched three times by Hu Xiaoshen at the Metrograph,
Mhm.
which was great.
That
Um,
is a motion picture.
yeah. One film that I wanted to suggest, I guess, and I think either way would be good because I wanted to watch a film by Jia Zhangke.
Uh-huh.
Ooh,
I think there's a film called A Touch of Sin. I think it's
ooh.
like an anthology film that talks about kind of like the interrelatedness of like what happens throughout different parts in China.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know if that's of interest for people.
Oh, I'm interested.
I'm
A touch,
I'm
interested
very
too.
much
Yeah,
yeah,
interested.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let is it cool if you do A Touch of Sin? I think,
I'm very down. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's do that. Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is something that I've been wanting to save and suggest, so we could like
Mhm.
talk about it later. Yeah,
Is Jiajiangke the world as well?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
I
Still
actually, have
alive.
you seen that? I have some friends who saw that recently and said it was amazing. I've been meaning to see that too. So
yeah.
maybe another time, but
Yeah,
I might have to do a couple this month.
how about these two will be for sure, and let's just say
I like it.
optional, the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you're all right. You don't have to put it down. I might just check it out on my own even
yeah,
and let
yeah.
you know
Cool,
what I
cool.
think.
We'll just say like this extra credit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, cool.
But, all right, and
All
then
right.
let's um let's decide on a next time to meet. Um,
Mhm.
I think for me the week of like the third week of March, like March 23 or like
Yeah,
March. Is March 23 good for people?
23 is good for
Yeah.
me.
23 is good
23?
for me. Yeah.
All right, then let's do March 23, same time, 7:30 p.m. EST.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
All right, sounds good. I'll send over just like the spotlight films and then the next time we're meeting and let me stop. Okay. And then I think I'm gonna okay, I'm gonna unshare. I'm gonna put stop recording.